Hey everyone, and welcome back to Country Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again. As always, please be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe to us wherever you are listening. You can leave us a review, a rating, tell your friends, your family, your neighbors to come on over and have a listen. That support is huge. Today, we're joined by Erin Enderlin. Now, her dreams of country music stardom began all the way back when she was in kindergarten. She took records in for show and tell. In grade 4, she wrote a song to perform to the class, and later on, she moved to Nashville to attend Middle Tennessee State University. Now, that was in 2000 that she went to university, and it was in 2004 that she received her first cut as a songwriter, and it was a big one. It was with Alan Jackson. Now, since that time, she has worked with and performed with many of the people that she looked up to when she was just in her bedroom writing, dreaming of being a country music musician. It's been a wonderful journey, and unfortunately, we couldn't pack all of the stories she has from her time in Nashville into one episode, but we did touch on a lot of them. So please enjoy our conversation with Erin Enderlin. Who was the most inspirational, like right off the bat, from what you remember? Because I know your grandparents were big influences for you, and then your parents, of course. But who would you say along the journey early on was the most influential for you in your love for music?
For music, I think definitely, I don't know, I had a special relationship with my grandpa, and he had, the record player. And it was always a big deal because you had to wait till he came home to get to play his record player and go through the whole thing of picking out a record and dusting it off and all that. And so that was definitely a big influence on me getting into it. But, my mom put me in music lessons when I was 5 years old because I said I wanted to do it, and started learning to play the piano, which I'm still not very good at. Gave me a good, foundation and learning some of the stuff about music theory. And it just seemed like music was everywhere.
And as far as your grandpa's record collection goes, you were taking those into kindergarten for show and tell, were you not?
I took a Conway Twitty record into show and tell in kindergarten. And I lived in Conway, Arkansas, so I don't know if I made some sort of correlation there or not, but I definitely was like all about the Conway Twitty.
And one of the really early experiences I wanted to talk about was, I believe it was in grade 4, and you wrote a song and you took it into class because you wanted to sing it. Now, you were already writing then. So when was your first song? Do you remember what it was? Was it a song, or was it just sort of words on paper?
The first time I remember like actually thinking like I'm going to write a song and do that. I wrote a couple when I was in 4th grade. And, I think the very first one I wrote was called Where the Bluegrass Grows. And it was like a play on bluegrass music. And I don't know. I guess I was already trying to turn those hooks even back then.
Right. Yeah. And do you have notebooks filled with songs still? Did you keep any of that stuff? Do your parents have it?
I still have quite a few of them. I kept a bunch of the songs that were written at first. I used to keep them in a trapper keeper, and I brought that with me to fanfare when I was 16 to carry around just in case I found anybody who needed a song up here in Nashville.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about that because I saw that post, and I was wondering sort of what your mindset was at that point, because you're 16, you're going to fanfare as a fan, but you're almost already as a professional musician because you're ready to hand out your songs to whoever wants them. So did you already have that mindset of being a professional musician?
I mean, I definitely think it's something that I wanted to be a part of. I definitely was so green but it's like cute when you're 16. It's maybe not cute anymore at my age now. But I would go through artist lines that I admired what they did, and I would ask them questions about how they do things and stuff. So I was already like, oh, it's like a little mini job fair. Plus I get to meet really cool people, get to ask questions about what you do. And it was one of the first times too that I got to see a lot of live music all at once, which was a big influence and eye opener. But I definitely, Yeah, I don't know. I guess I have to say I was kind of a weird kid, but that's fine. Like weird kids make the world go round, right? Uh, but yeah, I had some spark. I don't think I even 100% knew like what that meant to be a professional musician, but I had a spark of like, this makes me, excited. I'm passionate about this.
Right. And since you were writing so young, was it something that sort of kept you inside, kept you in your bedroom, kept you from being with the other kids? Or was that just a part of it and you still had all of your other childhood and all that other stuff going on?
I had a lot of other stuff going on, but I like to call myself an introverted extrovert, but so I definitely spent a lot of time with my music and playing and listening and writing. Um, and I actually, when I was in high school, I started playing out at a lot of coffee houses and different things. But then I actually went to boarding school in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and there was a big community of kids there that played music and did things and wrote songs, and it was so cool. Like every night after we do our homework and stuff, we could come down for free time and we'd sit in the lobby and play songs for each other. And it was a really cool experience.
And so you started the piano young. When did the guitar come in? When did you start to learn that?
I started to learn guitar when I was 13 and had a great teacher who, a lot of music teachers, they want to teach you the scales. They want to show you the formal way to learn things. And I appreciate that. But my brain was just like, I don't have time for this. I need to learn how to put music to my songs. I brought my Reba McEntire songbooks to the lessons, and he was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. And so he'd teach me how to do the songs that I loved and teach me how to take the melodies that I was hearing in my head and translate them to chords. And he was really influential too on telling me, like people do this, like people write songs and they sing and make music for a living. And he had played shows with folks like Emily Harris and Chet Atkins and stuff. So he knew more of like how to take that spark to like the next level of understanding.
So how important was that for you then? Because you're coming from a smaller town. I mean, Little Rock was the biggest town near you. It was about half an hour away. So how important was it having that influence of you can do this?
It was huge. And I mean, I took lessons at UCA, the college there, and he would pull other students of his in from the hallway and be like, you got to listen to this girl's song, and have me play my own songs for people. And I definitely think that gave me a lot of confidence to do that. Cause that can be, you're really putting your soul out there, when you go out. So I think having that early on, just having somebody say, man, that's awesome. I love that. Keep doing that. That, inspired me and gave me the courage to go out and play shows.
And so when did you know a fact that this is what you wanted your career to be? This is what you wanted your life to be?
When I came to Fanfare that year, I mean, I think that's when I knew like I had to get to Nashville, and I still didn't understand exactly how it all worked or how I would do it, but I knew I loved making music, and that was the place to be. So that's kind of when I started formulating and planning and working on trying to get a plan to go to school up here and all that. So my parents wouldn't kill me, but I could be close to Nashville, the center of everything. I remember one of the biggest memories I have of Fanfare is sitting and watching Leanne Womack sing, and Dolly Parton came out and they did Jolene together. And it was just like my brain exploded. And I think maybe in that moment, exactly that moment, I was like, okay, like I can't do anything else.
And now your first album that is sort of talked about was 2013, but I saw that you had promo photos from like the end of high school that your dad took with you by a Mustang.
Oh my God.
And
yeah.
you had mentioned that those were used for album art. And I was wondering, was that like a really early album?
Yeah. So I guess maybe I'm lucky or not. I don't know. But when I started putting out CDs and doing that and recording music, they didn't really have streaming or even iTunes or anything like that. So most people can't access them now. But yeah, I would go and I was lucky enough to have some folks in high school. My senior year, I recorded a couple of different things. It's just me and my guitar, and did a couple little projects. And then when I went to school at Middle Tennessee State University, that's kind of one of their specialties is music and all that. So I had buddies there that, were really in the engineering side of things. And I'd go in my buddy Blake's dorm room and record just guitar vocals and do 10 or 11 of them and put them on an album that, I'd do the Photoshopped artwork and all that good stuff for.
And so do you still have any of those lying around, any of the physical copies?
I do. I have, the museum editions. Every so often I'll have somebody post about one of them and I'm just like, oh man. I mean, there's some gems in there, and then there's also some really questionable decisions. Like on the same record I put out that I was selling at my shows in college.
Right.
I had a guitar vocal Monday Morning Church, and I had a song about my cat dying. So, I mean,
Oh man. And you talked about Middle Tennessee State, where you went to school. So that's not in Nashville, but it's just outside of Nashville.
Yeah.
And so were you like making regular trips into Nashville during that time?
Oh yeah. And then I actually, at that point, once I got into the program, I was able to take all my classes on Monday and Wednesday. I'd go all day, all night. And then the rest of the week, I'd try to find somebody that I could take out to coffee or have a meeting with or write with or something here in Nashville. And then my senior year, I actually moved into Nashville. There was a songwriter I knew who he had a house that he rented out different rooms and stuff, had a bachelor apartments and some different setups. And he had a room open. So I moved in there, and actually one of my housemates was Chris Stapleton.
Oh, really?
So I got to hear him playing down there every night and listen to him writing songs. That definitely was another moment. I was like, okay, well, I probably, need to focus a little bit, take this up.
And now I wanted to ask you about Beverly Keel, because she is now the dean, I believe, at Middle Tennessee State. I don't know if she was the dean back then, but I know you had mentioned she meant a lot in your journey at that point. So just talk about her and how she influenced you and what she meant.
She was just she's an amazing, amazing person. She's got an energy about her that's really infectious. You can't, I don't know, it's hard to be in a bad mood around her. She's an amazing journalist and writer, and she's worked with publicity, folks like Jamie Johnson and Alison Krauss and things, and written for stuff like People magazine. So she's like a superstar in what she does. And she really mentored me a lot. I was fortunate enough to have Alan Jackson record one of my songs, Monday Morning Church, with Patty Loveless, and put it out as a single when I was a senior in college. And it was definitely a huge blessing, but I was really still young and green, and I don't know that I understood all the things that came with that. And there's a lot, I don't know. I was also one of those people, like I would go into a room in Nashville and I knew everybody in there. Like when I went to go record my first demo session, Eddie Bayers was playing drums and Tammy King was playing fiddle. I was like, oh my God, like these people are playing on my songs. Like, I can't believe this. And go see Matresa Berg and Gretchen Peters and stuff at the award shows and things around town. And I went from being a little bitty fly on the wall, just trying to get my bearings, to like everybody knew who I was, And so that was kind of a little overwhelming. And Beverly was like, it's going to be okay. Just, you just keep doing what you're doing and all this. And she was really there for me to, bounce things off of and kind of help me with that whole process of going from I'm a kid making music to, oh, okay, like I'm supposed to be a professional.
Yeah, exactly. What was that like? Because like you say, before you really even moved to Nashville full time, you had Alan Jackson cut one of your songs. And so when you've graduated university and you were in Nashville full time as a career, where was your mindset? Because you have this songwriting part that is obviously successful for you right away, but then you probably also want to be an artist. So did you sort of have to battle that in the early years of being there?
Well, early, I actually signed a record deal with RCA about a couple months after Alan cut that song.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was a development deal. And no music ever actually got put out. It's safely hidden away in a vault somewhere. But it was a really interesting experience too, in figuring out like how that whole thing works. I got to go in the studio with some great producers and work on music and do some of the meetings at the label and figure out some of that stuff. So it was a cool process, but I definitely, as part of that whole thing, I think I maybe kind of matured here and there as a writer before I did as an artist. And even though I had a really strong sense of who I was and what I wanted to do, at the same time, I wasn't quite comfortable enough to just be that, to just be myself and do that. And I think that's something that I've really learned and gotten into with the last couple of records. And it's a really, really great feeling and experience. I think at that point I was still trying to be like, okay, well, I'm at this label, so I should listen to what they want me to do and just, do these kind of things. And that's good to a certain extent, but they can't, tell you who you are. You're supposed to like help them understand who you are.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I think it was with I Let Her Talk, your first EP, that you had shared on your Instagram some photos from that album shoot. And then you shared one that you recently took at that same location. And you mentioned just how much you had grown and sort of the insecurity that you saw in those old photos. And so when you were in producing that record, you're producing it with Alex Klein, who recently became the first female solo producer to have a song go #1.
Yeah,
And
she did.
so back then when you were working with her, obviously she was newer to the industry as well. So what was that process like for you?
It was amazing. I actually, I think Alex was born to be a producer and she would have figured it out sooner or later, but she was doing these demos up in her attic over in Nashville, and we'd written some together, and I had talked her into coming out and doing shows on the road with me when she left another band that she was in. And so I wanted to do this project. And so I was like, hey, do you want to produce this record? And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's just like what you're doing already, but we'll just do this. And she was like, okay. And I mean, it was kind of funny. I mean, we had I think we paid the players like $50 a piece to come in all day to record. And, we were kind of learning by the seat of our pants doing things. And, but it was a great experience. And there are some real shining moments on that album that I'm real proud of. And I don't know, Alex is still one of my best friends. And it's just really awesome to work with people that, you love and respect so much. Forrest Whitehead came in and sang some on that record and written with me, some played a little bit, and some other folks that I really, really love what they do. And so it was a really cool experience, but it was definitely another okay, well, we can't wait till we're at the point where we know what we're doing. We're just going to have to go figure it out. And then you get there.
And so after you released that album, it was 2017 when you released your next one. So within those few years, again, were you sort of, well, I guess even now, is it always just the songwriting and being a musician and balancing those two?
Kind of. I kind of went through a moment after the 2013 album came out. And I think that you see that there is kind of a shift in my artistry there from that point. Like once you see Whiskey Town Crier come out, I think you see a lot of consistency with who I am and what I'm doing. But I kind of went through a shift of several folks that I was working with, and kind of a little, Nashville's an amazing town, but sometimes it can, at least for me, it can take my head over to too much of the business side of things and not enough of the music side of things.
Right.
And I think I got a little bit disillusioned and a little bit confused and about what I was doing with some things. And so I just started going out and figuring out, okay, well, how do I book my own shows? How do I get out and play? How do I put these records out and do this? And tried to get back to playing songs for people, having that interaction and focusing on the music more than trying to figure out what to do with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I get it must be hard, especially you're coming from university, you're thrown right into the deep end, but at the same time, you have to find out who you are as a musician. You can't look at all these things around you and pick what parts you want to have within you as a musician. You have to find that within your soul of what you want your music to be and what you want to sound like and how you want to present yourself. So it's got to be a difficult journey in finding that.
And it's had some really awesome moments along the way. And I Let Her Talk was actually the first song that allowed me to play on the Grand Ole Opry. And I kind of started that process of kind of reshaping what I was doing and recentering myself. I actually worked at the Opry for a year or two before that record came out. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. The Opry is one of the main things that made me fall in love with country music in the first place. And it really brought me back to the love of it. And I had a couple moments even when I was working there that really opened my eyes. Like one night, these 3 teenage girls came up to the door and they were just, screaming and, oh my God, and I was like, oh, are y'all big Jason Aldean fans because he's playing tonight? And they were like, no, you don't know Jack, a song I wrote for Luke Bryan. And I was like, what? Like, how do you even know that? And I'm dressed in like this uniform that makes it look like I'm, flipping burgers in 1970, taking their tickets at the Opry. And some of the things like that and getting to just be around the fans every night, people would come from all over the world. Like I remember talking to a guy who came from Japan, and since he was a little kid, he'd always loved country music and he really wanted to visit the Opry and get to see that. And that kind of just like, I don't care what the pie charts are on the sales for this song or like how we package this or how we define this music. I just love this. And these are the songs I love. And these are the artists I love. And that is what kind of got me into that journey of, I think, really getting to a place where I'm comfortable in my own boots and just love what I do. And I'm able to be a little bit more real, which I always wanted to be, but it can be intimidating. And I Let Her Talk let me play on the Opry for the first time, which was absolutely my number one dream in life. And it's pretty wild. And I'm actually going to be playing there again on the 15th to celebrate this album release. And this will be the second album that I get to celebrate at the Opry, which is pretty wild.
And that first time you had only quit working there like a week or two before you actually hit the stage to play there, didn't you?
Yeah. Pete Fisher, who's the manager there, he offered me chance to come play there, and he said, I only have one request. I need you to stop working here before you do that, because I can't have everybody thinking that they can just get up there and play.
Oh, that's funny. And so the next few years, you're constantly building, you're constantly making strides forward. Within those years, are you feeling that? Are you feeling it when you release an album, when you do a special show? Or is it a problem of always being like, oh, that's not enough, I haven't got this thing or this thing or this thing?
I mean, I think you always, if you're not so motivated and have things you want to accomplish, that could be problematic. But I definitely, even just getting to move to Nashville, I remember the first couple of times I just drove down Broadway and just feeling how lucky I was to be able to do that, because and I guess maybe one of the big things that, not to get dark, but I had a friend who died in a car accident the weekend after high school graduation. And that really made a big impact on me. And he's actually who I wrote Monday Morning Church about. And so I think that kind of event in somebody's life, wakes you up real fast to a different kind of thing and a different perspective. And, he was getting ready to go to college on a soccer scholarship. And was a great guy, worked in his church and did all these things and had all these dreams. And I remember in high school the last year, which I still have it up on my wall over here, but he wrote me a note saying that you're so great at singing and what you do. Don't ever give up your dream. And I've kept that on my wall since then. And I think every time I look at it, it just reminds me how lucky I am to even be in pursuit of something that I love. And, I've gotten to do crazy stuff. Like I got to open for Kitty Wells at the Hall of Fame at the very last public performance she did. I've gotten to tour with Jamie Johnson and Willie Nelson. I got to sing with Willie and Merle. Got to write songs for folks like Reba McEntire and Terry Clark, and Terry just did a duet with me that I put out, and just get to meet so many amazing people here in town and get to make music every day. And sometimes it is hard to see in the middle of everything, but one thing that definitely has kept it in perspective for me is every couple months, every couple years, you do these little bio points that I'll send out in all my emails.
Right.
And you start getting those. You start off kind of like, well, I've played this many shows. I've, written this many songs. I've, written with these people. And then you start switching those out for like, I've played the Bluebird, I've played the Opry, I've played the Ryman, I've, done these things, and I've written songs for these folks like Reba and Alan Jackson and Randy Travis, and like Elton John had me on his podcast and whatever. And so when you start like plugging those in, you see them and you're like, man, okay, like stuff is happening.
Well, like I said at the beginning, you basically have a book full of experiences that you can go to, right?
Yeah. I have tried to write down some of those little things. I think it'd be fun to just have little stories, little blips of the things I've gotten to experience and be a part of.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to ask, if you had like a list of all the people that you've met along the way.
I don't really have a list. I probably should like have worked on that. I do have I have some boxes over here that have like just all kinds of mementos, like show posters from shows I've gotten to play, and different kinds of things like that, and news articles and stuff. And those, I'm thinking that someday I'll pull stuff out of there and be like, okay, well, this goes with this story. Like,
that's awesome. And so coming in to the new EP, when did this start to take shape? Is it something that took shape over the same period, or do you have songs on here that were written, a couple of years ago that you've kind of been holding on to and waiting for the right project?
Yeah, there are songs from several years ago to right before I cut the EP on here. And I had been thinking of this concept for a while of you walk, you go into a bar on any given night and there's a dozen different people in there, and they're all they're drinking for different reasons. And what's each of their stories? And kind of in that way put together the songs in my mind for this project. And when everybody got called off the road in March of 2020, I knew I wanted to just keep doing things, be creative. And I learned how to record on my computer to do guitar vocals and things, and started kind of shaping up songs that I thought would be right for this. And I connected with an engineer that I actually went to college with at MTSU, and we started getting together, and I went in and just played the guitar and did the vocals, and then sent it out to several different other musicians to add onto it. And just felt like in such a time of upheaval and all kinds of other things going on, and maybe not the most positive things, music, that experience, that's something that brings me a lot of joy. And I knew that sharing with people too is just something good to focus on.
Right. And we talked about, finding yourself in Nashville and finding out who you are. Now, this record is the first time that you've played the guitar on an album. Usually it'll be session players that play on the album. And so what does that say about how comfortable you are as a musician at this point in your life?
It was definitely, it was a lot outside my comfort zone, but I knew I wanted to do it. And I thought this is the perfect time to try that. And I really loved the experience of it. I don't have like the metronome timing of some musicians, but some of my favorites like Willie Nelson don't always really do that. But it was just so cool to be able to have, because I feel like I have a voice in my guitar playing as well as in my singing. And so to be able to play the songs more true to what I do live too, I thought was really cool.
And you mentioned Terry Clark having a bit on this record. Now, I think I saw something about you being part of the Terry Clark fan club when you were young. Now, was that an actual club, or was that just you saying that you were a super fan?
Oh yeah, I was a part of her fan club, and I went, I have a picture with her at one of her fan club parties here. And I think it was the same year that she cut the first song of mine that she recorded. I've been lucky enough to have her record 7 songs I've written now.
Wow.
There's quite a few that I co-wrote with her, which is even cooler. But yeah, it's pretty funny. I try not to get too nerdy with her about that, but we're pretty good buds now. But it's definitely funny.
Is it difficult to sort of look back and sort of follow that journey with someone? Because I know there's a lot of people that you looked up to when you were younger that you have gotten to work with or are still close friends with. And so is it challenging to sort of take that journey and realize that I was part of the Terry Clark fan club and now I'm like working regularly, writing regularly with her? Is it difficult to sort of have that in your brain in the moment because you're just focused on that moment?
I do really wish that I had kept a journal when I moved to town to be able to see a little more, because I have written like some entries randomly. I would have, and I'll take them back and read them and be like, man, like I had a different mindset kind of when I moved here. And it would be interesting to be able to go back and kind of see that difference. But sometimes it can be interesting in the moment, and it can be a little bit intimidating. But at the same time, I think that's one of the things I love about country music is that it's very real. It's very, it's not a music that's too big for its britches. You know what I mean? Like most everybody I've worked with here has been just so nice and gracious, and the artist to the songwriters to everybody. I mean, I remember working at the CMA Awards one year, and I got paid like $50 a day to make sure people didn't miss their call times and things to come out because it was a live taping.
Right.
And Garth Brooks was back there, and he saw me standing over there working, and he came over and was like, "Hey, are you doing all right? Do you need anything? You need a drink or anything?" And I was like, "I'm supposed to do that for you, but thanks." But but that's how people are here. They care about each other, and for the most part, they're not, so that helps when you're in those moments that it's like, man, I used to be had their posters on my wall, and now I'm sitting here trying to write a song with them.
And you talk about, wanting to sort of have a journal from back in the day to compare your mindsets of then and now. So just now, in this moment, with a new album coming out, what is your mindset? Where are you within this musical journey?
Man, I'm really interested. I'm really interested to see where this new music's going to go and take me. I haven't still been able to get out and play a whole lot of live shows lately, and I really, really am missing that and looking forward to doing more of that, which I'll get to do more of this next month, which is great. And I think I just am still at this place where I'm thankful every day that I get to do what I love and still making music, and just want to keep getting better and keep refining it and keep growing.
That's awesome. And as far as the songwriting goes, like, how do you pick 5 or 6 songs for an EP? Because I imagine with the amount of writing you do, your catalog is probably very deep.
Yeah. I'm trying to get, that's an area where I think I'm growing in, trying to make a collection of songs that work not just as an album, but then also when you're touring and doing different things. And a lot of these songs have been songs that have been favorites of mine for a while, or I wrote a couple of new ones that I kind of had an idea, like I want something like this I could play out at my shows. And I've been doing a lot of regular Facebook lives and things, and I actually posted quite a few of the songs I was thinking about doing this last year and asked my fans, like, what do you think? Should this be on the record? And got to interact with them some of that way, which was really cool.
That is awesome. Well, the EP Barroom Mirrors, it's out October 15th. Like you say, you're going to be debuting it at the Opry that night, which is absolutely amazing. Congratulations on the release and really this entire journey that we've been able to talk about. It's an amazing journey from, dreaming about this as a 2-3-year-old. So congratulations on everything. And thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you once again so much for listening, and thank you to Erin for stopping by and sharing her story. Be sure to check out her new EP, Barroom Mirrors, wherever you stream your music. Please also be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe to us wherever you are listening. Leave us a review, a rating, tell your friends, your family, your neighbors to come on by and have a listen. That support is huge. Thanks once again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Country Music Made Me.